In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at some of the adjustments that you can apply to a photograph or a picture. And the adjustments are found under the Image and Adjustments menu. You can see there's a whole bunch of them there. We're going to take a look at just a few of them and how they work. And then you can just play around with the rest of them. So when you take pictures, the first one that you should really go to is levels. And this is actually a fairly well lit picture. But basically, what the idea here is that you want your sliders here. You've got three of them: the highlights, the mid tones, and the dark tones, to be at the beginning and at the end of your graph. So if I drag this down, you'll see that the picture actually gets a lot brighter until the point where it's just white. And then this one, if I drag it down, will create a very dark picture. So you can really change your picture, or you can do a real subtle change. So if I'm going to drag this to the beginning of the graph there, I might want to drag that one over a little bit, and just to adjust the lighting a little bit. This one, of course, I can drag in either direction, so I can brighten up the picture, or I can darken up the picture. And it's a lot of personal preference. What do you like? What do you think looks good? But that is how the levels work. So this picture is taken in RGB, so I can just adjust the reds. And you can see that it has the effect of creating a very red picture. Drag it down, it takes the red out, and it adds the red in. And the same goes for green. Takes the green out, adds the green in. And of course you have blue. So that's adjusting the levels. We'll leave it as is. I'm going to try and keep this to be a reasonably good looking picture. And so I'll just do a slight adjustment to the levels there. I've also got the brightness and contrast, which just of course will either brighten up the picture or darken the picture depending on what it is I want to accomplish. And then I can increase or decrease the contrast in colors. So there's a great deal of difference in color. I've increased it, and then I've kind of faded out. It's almost like a bit of a haze over it. So I actually want to increase the colors. I want to keep it fairly bright. So the two can work together hand in hand. So there's my original, and I've just deepened the colors a little bit. I still have a fairly dark area here. And what I can actually do is select that. There's a tool here called the lasso tool. And I just take that little black arrow, and I'm just going to select this tree trunk here. I'm going to go off the page so it'll go along there, and I'm just going to create a selection like that. Then what I can do is go to my adjustment, brightness and contrast, and when I increase or decrease, it will only affect the tree trunk. So I can try that out if I just want to increase it a little bit, maybe add a little bit more light to it. And then if I think it looks okay, click OK. And then I can go select, deselect to get rid of that. So I can brighten up just separate areas of my document, and that applies for all of them. The next one, curves, also has to do with the lighting. And I can drag this up and down, make some drastic changes, or I can do some just real subtle changes, brightening and darkening it. So I've got different graphs that I can adjust, and you can see it gets fairly complex in terms of its lighting. So you can create some really cool effects if you want to really change your picture, or you can leave it as is. So that's another way that you can adjust your lighting. So I'm just going to cancel that because I don't want to do anything too drastic there. I've already changed the lighting. The main two that you can use are really the brightness and the levels. Exposure has to do with overexposure, underexposure, so of course I can darken it and lighten it. Very similar to brightness and contrast. The offset. And I've got this thing called gamma correction. So essentially with Photoshop, they all work as sliders, and you can adjust them up and down. A lot of them, if you don't know what they do, just try them out and see what it does, and then you can change as you see fit. And you can get real creative and create some very interesting looking pictures. Vibrance, drag it up, really increases the vibrance and the glow of the color, and then really fades it out so it looks almost like it's getting to be black and white. So you can play around with those. And the preview button here is really handy. Saturation, I can do a grayscale picture, what they used to call black and white, or I can really increase the colors there. So I'm gonna I'm going to leave that at 0. I don't want it to be so yellow. Hey, just a few more. I have adjustments. I'm going to go to hue and saturation. And this is a pretty fun one. This is where I can increase and decrease the lightness of the picture. I'm going to leave it at 0. I can go to grayscale here as well, or I can really increase the coloring. And then often with pictures you just want to do real subtle changes. You can also create some really surreal looking pictures where you're emphasizing one color over other ones. It almost looks like it's overlaying pictures. So that's how you'd create some otherworldly looks to your picture, if that's what you want to end up with. Black and white allows me to create a black and white picture, but I can also adjust specific colors and change the black and white look of the picture. So I'm dragging out the blue. So I'm adjusting the black and white transformation of the blues separately from every other color. So again, some real otherworldly looks to it. So again, it just depends on what you want to see at the end. Photo filters, kind of the Photoshop version of changing a filter on an actual camera lens. You've got different filters you can apply. You can go by color and just choose a different color to apply over top of it, and then you can adjust the amount here. So that's the photo filters. And there's a bunch of other ones here as well. The one that will take, which one was it? Let's see, replace color. Maybe I'll have to go back in my history a little bit. So we'll go back here and image, adjustments, replace color. So what I do is I click on the color, and you can see it selects in white here all the color blue, and then what I can do is adjust the hue. So I can change the sky. I can make it black and white. So this is the way you can take color out of just part of a picture, and of course the lightness. So I can go one color at a time if I want to change all the green. I can do that. Get otherworldly looks to it. And I can replace it with the color using these adjustment sliders here. So that's a really cool effect. You can take a color picture and change it all down to black and white except for one color, such as red, rose, or whatever you want to do. So those are some really fun things that you can do. with your picture under image adjustments, and just try some of the other ones. They basically give you a bunch of sliders, or like black and white, we'll just convert it to a black and white picture. Oh, that did have the sliders. There are some auto ones up here. Generally, I don't use them because I want to have control over what the picture looks like. This one will just adjust it according to Photoshop standards and rules. So those are some of your adjustment layers. Try them out, see what you think, and see what you can come up with your photographs.